What's up guys, Justin here with the realtimeessentials.com. So in today's video we're going to create a custom level for our first person shooter game inside of Unity. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so if you remember last week we used the first person shooter kit in order to create our first game. This week what I want to talk about is how to create a custom level using this kit. So again, this is more having to do with your understanding of the way that the prefabs work and how you can actually like move things around in Unity. So remember that within this game, there's a couple different scenes, right? So there's an intro menu scene, which if you run that scene and you click on the play button, that's going to have a menu in here where you can select either your controls or you can click on play. If you click on play, what that does is that loads the first scene. So it loads the main scene from that menu. A little bit later on, I'll show you how to add a box on that in order to load a different scene. But for now, what we want to do is we want to find that main scene right here. So if I double click on it, I can view that in Unity. And what I want to do now is I want to copy that main scene so that I can create a new one. So to do that, we're just going to select this and we're just going to do a Control D in order to duplicate it. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this something like, let's just call it level 2. And we're going to go ahead and click on the reload button. If we double click on this, this is our level 2 scene that we have loaded. And so notice how if we click play, it's exactly the same as level 1 because we haven't made any changes, right? So all of your collisions are in here, your enemies are in here, all of that is still in here. What we want to do, I'm going to hit the escape key and turn off play. Well, what I want to do is I'm just going to repurpose this level right here. And so the way that I'm going to repurpose this level is I'm going to come through here and I'm going to delete out some of the prefabs that are in here and create my own. Notice how, by the way, most of these are sitting inside of your level over here. So this is organized in a way that you can see all of these different level pieces. So there's a room 1, 2, and 3 in here, all of that. I'm just going to go through and delete out some walls right here. So I'm just going to get rid of the walls that are currently in this scene, and you can actually do that faster by coming in here and hitting the delete key or just deleting entire rooms. So we could delete this whole room out if you decided that you wanted to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in here and I'm getting rid of the things that I don't want, and then I'm going to use prefabs in order to build my own level. So we're going to go ahead and delete out this enemy right here. We'll go ahead and delete out these walls too. You could probably delete out all the rooms, but I don't really want to do that. And then we'll just delete out the whole observatory, the weapon launcher, so that we're basically starting with a clean slate. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take my character controller right here, or my player, and I'm going to move it over here. So I want my player to start over here now. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate this player so that they're looking at this way when they start. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the play button just to make sure everything is working. And so if you look right here, notice how I'm still able to walk around. The enemies are out here, but there's no walls or anything like that. And so if I wanted to, I could just make this a giant wide open space where the enemies come to me and I shoot them, right? So we could definitely do that. But what I want to do is I want to make a quick level just to give you kind of an idea of how we might do that. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use the prefabs that come with the first person shooter game. So we're going to go to prefabs, and under level, notice how there's a lot of different things you can select. So there's pre-built rooms. There's this base objects is going to show you kind of an overview of some of the objects that you have available, as well as you have other things like stairwells and things like that. And so all I want to do is I want to do something very simple. So I'm going to drag a couple of these prefabs into my scene like this. Notice how I can place them by selecting them and then tapping either the W, E, or R keys in order to allow you to rotate, move, or scale them. So in this case, what I'm going to do is the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm keeping these all in my level section down below so that I'm staying organized. So in this case, I'm just going to drag this into my level. And I'm not really using rooms for this, so I'm just going to minimize those for right now. But what I want to do is I just want to duplicate this. So I'm just going to do a Control D. I'm going to move it over. I'm going to do a Control D again with both of these selected. I'm going to move these over right here. And then I'm just going to go through and just select them and do a Control D, select them and do a Control D. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I have a number of different walls in my scene. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just making something that'll have like a boss on the other side, and then you're just going to have to work your way through it. Like this. So again, very simple level. I'm not trying to make it complicated, more just kind of to give you an idea of how you might do this. Honestly, I prefer making these levels in an external program like a Blender or a SketchUp or something like that, just because I find the modeling tools to be a little bit better, but you can definitely do it this way as well. So what we've got in here now is we've got a bunch of different walls in here. So now if I click in here to play, my character is going to run through. It's going to run into the walls, and remember that it has a rigid body attached to it, so that means that it's not going to be able to work its way through the walls. All right, so now let's set up some enemies. So I'm going to hit the escape key and the play key right here. And so the first thing we can do is we can repurpose these enemies that are already over here. So the enemy hoverbot. So, and I'm going to make sure these are all organized again, because these kind of got moved around a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these hoverbots. I'm going to go into a top-down view just because I find that to be the easiest way to move them around. And I'm just going to move the hoverbots over into my scene. Over here. Like this. And so now you can see that you have two hoverbots in your scene that are kind of hiding behind these walls, right? You've got one over here, one over here. But if we were to hit play, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. And so the problem is, notice how, if one of them sees me, they're going to walk through the walls, right? And so the reason why they're going to walk through the walls is because we haven't updated our navmesh. So our navmesh is going to be something that's built in order to show our enemies where they can go and where they can't. And so you can activate that by clicking on this navmesh surface right here. So remember that we updated that when we added a level before. And notice how this is all kind of showing what was previously in here. So the reason it's showing what was previously in here is because we built this navmesh based on the old level. All right, so now with that navmesh selected, what you want to do is you want to jump over into the bake settings right here, and you want to click the button for clear. And so when you clear this, what it's done is it's basically cleared the nav mesh that was created before. So notice how that's now gone. You can no longer see that. And so what that means is that there's now currently nothing in here telling your enemies where they can go and where they can't. And so what we need to do is we need to re-bake this with the new objects that are in here. So under navigation, bake, you just want to click on the button for bake. And so notice what that does is that comes in here and that creates a new nav mesh in your scene. And so that new nav mesh in your scene, if you look at it, the blue areas are going to be the areas where your enemies can go. And so notice how the blue areas around the walls indicate that they can't travel through the walls. So when the enemy is moving around and looking for you, it's now basically being told, hey, this area right here is off limits. And so what we want to do now is, first off, let's hit the play button real quick. And I'm just going to click in here and just notice how now if I activate this enemy right here, it has to go around the wall. So it can't come through the wall like it did before. Notice how it's now traveling around that wall in my scene. So that's what the new nav mesh is doing. All right, so now let's add some additional enemies in here. And so that's pretty easy to do. All we want to do is we can go into the prefabs right here and just drag new enemies into our scene. So let's say we wanted new enemies hiding behind the walls, maybe like here and here, like this. And then at the end of the game, let's say that we wanted one of the big turrets, right? So I'm going to drag a turret over here. And you can use the E key in order to go into rotate mode, and you can rotate this so that it's facing back towards your player. And so now what I have is I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the enemy hoverbots and an enemy turret. So now if I was to click in here and play this, remember my goal is to eliminate all the enemies. So I would come in here and eliminate the enemies like this, and I would get the objective complete. this would take me to the all objectives completed. And notice what that's going to do now is that's going to take me to the menu page. And that's going to give me the option to play again or go to the main menu. So if you click on main menu, it's going to open main menu right here. And so let's say that we wanted to change this menu, right? So right now our overall menu gives us the option to load one level. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to save this scene. And then let's open up that menu scene. So we're going to go to the intro menu right here. So if we look at this, this has a title text and then it has two buttons in here, right? It has a start button and it has a controls button. And so if we look at these, let's go back to our inspector real quick and we look at our button. Notice how there's a very simple script in here that basically just loads a scene. Right, so for the start button right here, the one that says play, this is going to load our main scene. Right, if we were to double click and look at this, and so if we were to edit this script, notice how all it does is it just says when this button is clicked, load target scene, and then it says load scene, scene name, and then we set our scene name right here. So in this case, this button loads the main scene. Well, let's say we wanted to adjust this so that we had multiple different scenes in here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select these two buttons and we're going to move them up like this. And then the second button, the start button, I'm just going to do a Control D and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to move that down right here. And then notice how we can adjust the text that's in here. So if we were to click on the text right here, notice how right here there's a button that says play. Well, we're just going to click this and we're just going to make this say level 1. And then for the second one, we're going to make it say level 2. All right, so we've got our intro menu right here. Well, the problem with this is if we save this and then we run it, both buttons are going to load level 1, right? If I click on level 1, it's going to load the first level. If I click on level 2, it's still going to load level 1. Well, all we need to do to adjust that is just go into the script right here, the load scene button script. And for level 2, we just want to set this to, instead of main scene, we want to tell it to load the level 2 script. So if I hit the enter key and I save this, now if I click on level 1, it's going to load level 1. So level 1 works, but if I click on level 2, notice how we still have an issue. And so the reason for that is if you look down at the bottom of the page, it says it can't be loaded because it hasn't been loaded to the asset bundle. Well, all we need to do to fix that is just go up to our file. We want to go to our build settings. Well, notice how right now inside of our build, this scene isn't being loaded. So level 2 isn't being loaded right now. So what we want to do is just double click on level 2 and then click on the button for add open scenes. Well, now level 2 is being added to our build, meaning that when we click the play button, that's being built and it can be accessed by that menu button. So now if we go to intro menu and click play, we can load controls level 1, or if I click on level 2 is going to get loaded. So you can use this to add multiple different levels to your game. All right, so leave a comment below if you have any questions. I'll also in a separate video talk about how to create your own levels in an external software and bring them in. But if you have anything else you'd like to know, let me know. This series will continue with more things in the future. So I will link to this full series on this page so you can watch this from start to finish. I will be adding videos to this series. Leave a comment below if there's something that you would be interested in seeing in this series. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.